Lady in a sweet dream, talk to me. Let me see you. Can you see yourself? Midnight nightmare, keep me there. Take me where you go when day has come. 'Cause I know I'd rather be with you. I'd rather see the people you talk to. Everyone here is afraid to touch, afraid to care too much for his brother.
Offered the opportunity in late spring of 1969 to do something that it turned out had never been done before, and that's an American rock and roll band under sponsorship of the USO going to the Republic of South Vietnam.
We went to Vietnam because it seemed like a good idea at the time. We really wanted to do something for the guys that were over there. And none of us thought it was going to be dangerous. We thought it was going to be a whole lot of fun. And we all wanted an adventure.
I was actively avoiding the draft at that point. And when I found out we were going, I was really happy because it meant that I was deferred for at least another year.
Malaria shots. You mean we could be getting malaria by going there and playing rock and roll music? Typhoid fever. I mean, what, they don't have typhoid fever here in Van Nuys.
We had to make two concessions to the Defense Department in order to qualify to go to Vietnam. Concession number one, we had to cut our hair. Second thing that we had to do is we had to recruit a girl.
We met Corrine Carroll 3 days before we left. Her attitude was great. She had a very ballsy attitude that they loved. She would help us carry equipment. She knew how to set up the equipment. She didn't mind doing all of that stuff, so that worked out really well.
When we first flew into Vietnam, we could see how beautiful the landscape was. It was green, it was lush, it was full, it was tropical. And then you'd just move your eyes just a little bit to one side or the other and you'd see gigantic holes in the ground, burned out areas. It was very strange because on the one hand it looked like paradise, on the other hand it looked like war.
Woke up today to see the sun go down. Started to play a song for the people in the world I found.
Landing in the city, you get off the plane and there are people looking easily 2 or 3 years younger than you walking around with machine guns over their back.
And as we got off the plane, you could see all these military planes around, and then you saw the big transports. And we were getting off, and parked like right next to us was one of the cargo planes, and there was this front-end loader, a forklift, that was lifting pallets and putting it on to this. And it was loading body bags. It was loading dead GIs. I not only knew I was in a war zone, I was in an area where people had already been killed and were being shipped back home.
The size of the audiences of our shows varied greatly, from as many as over 10,000 people at Phan Rang Air Force Base to as few as less than 50.
Most of these guys were our age. The majority of them, even the sergeants were our age, because me being 21, I was like 3 years older than a lot of the kids over there. And man, they just loved the type of music we played. We played contemporary music. I mean, the music that was right on the radio that day. So obviously, they not only liked it, they liked it a lot.
They were hungry for any kind of entertainment that would take them out of that day-to-day reality. And the entertainment they wanted was acid rock music. And that's the reality they'd come out of 6 months before.
We would do an introductory song, loosen them up, let them understand that we were for real rock and roll and not playing Dixieland up there. And then we would say hi, introduce ourselves, and go right into Purple Haze. And once we had that routine down pat, audiences went totally berserk. And it was the real deal.
They treated us like stars. They did. It was a hard schedule, but everywhere we went, they were happy to see us. They applauded. They dug the music.
Nothing to say to anyone you see. It's better that way, you know. Nobody's gonna hurt you.
I liked playing on the Oriskany quite a bit. That was a trip.
They came up with an absolutely ingenious venue for the actual portrayal of the show. On the forward part of the deck of an aircraft carrier is a large elevator, and they lowered it down all the way but the last 6 feet.
And they set us up on this hangar bay and turned us loose, and boy, was that exciting.
Onto an empty floor. It's all in your head, they said. You could be happy without much more.
One of the curious things that happened to us on the Oriskany is because it was the Fleet Admiral's flagship, they had an enormous amount of radio traffic and radar, which unfortunately was picked up by our amplifiers.
My Jimi Hendrix fuzz box wouldn't work because it was being interfered with by their ComNet.
For the Fleet Admiral Jack Kenyon to have the show that he so much wanted for his men, he had to take what may be one of the boldest steps for an admiral in the entire history of the war, and that is the fleet flagship of the South China Sea U.S. naval operations. The Fleet Admiral had to turn off his radios and radar and go off the air for 1 hour so that 4 rock and roll musicians from the United States could do their show for the guys.
The conditions there varied so much. There were some locations in 3 Corps where they had built stages with like a shell in the background to focus the sound, and big acts like Bob Hope would play there, and so those sorts of things were there. And other times we'd like play in the back of a truck.
But we were extremely portable, so if you had a 110-volt generator, you could have live rock and roll anytime, anywhere, any place. Fire Support Base Charlie was a standout in a couple of respects. It was the closest to a real combat remote operation that we played. Secondly, it came under attack during our show.
Right in the middle of some song, and there was a firefight that broke out. The VC had come up to the perimeter of the camp, and with the intent of raiding the medical supplies. And on their way out, they heard the music and stopped, and were listening to the music and got caught.
We couldn't hear what was going on and were not aware of what was going on until a very large, burly sergeant came up to me after the show and said, "Hey, Red, you'll never guess what happened during your show." And I said, "What was that?" And he said, "Well, we caught 2 VC right behind the stage listening to your show. Just walked up and arrested them." There is an escort officer that is assigned to you as a group that goes everywhere you go and is armed at all times. This is your ranger, logistical, traffic cop, and bodyguard all rolled into one person.
Myron Stanley Morgan. Captain Myron Stanley Morgan, This guy was a real piece of work. He became our escort officer, and he meets us at the airport. He told us right up front he wanted as little to do with us as possible. We were stuck with each other. He'd do his job, but he wasn't happy about it.
And within 3 performances, he had become a full-blown roadie, qualified to completely assemble and completely disassemble our entire entourage of equipment and instruments for every show.
By the end of the second week in country, he was picking up the lingo and was talking about quitting the Army and going into showbiz. And then we got sent to Nha Trang.
Gary and I were standing on a balcony 6 stories up in the air in the city of Nha Trang, watching some young kid shoplift something and being chased by the police who were shooting at them, and just getting this awesome impression of the stupidity of the whole thing, the whole place. Everything that was going on over there was just stupid. There was an overwhelming mood that we found in Vietnam that I can only describe as weird. It was eerie. Things weren't the way you would expect things to be.
Wonderlands and color stars glisten through the gloom, through the gloom.
There was just an unreality about the whole situation.
To entertain us, they asked us what we wanted to do, and we said, well, you know, we'd like some ice cream, we'd like some popcorn, we'd like to see some movies, you know, whatever. So they bring down a projector and they bring us first-run movies, and they've got a Filipino guy there making us popcorn and serving us sundaes. And we're watching movies and eating ice cream and popcorn, and jets are taking off and landing and a war is going on. And here's the band at the movies.
And misty leaves in my eyes, in my heart, I see.
Here I am on this plane in Vietnam. We were somewhere on, you know, and I pick up a copy of the Stars and Stripes, which is a military, and the banner reads, you know, 1 million hippies go nude at Woodstock. And it was right when Woodstock was happening, and I thought, I am in the wrong place.
Sunset and the evening shore.
I had no strong opinions on the war. I could see rational reasons why it should be supported. I could see emotional reasons why it should be opposed. Other members of the band who felt more strongly about the war itself than I did had slightly differing opinions.
Yeah, I knew it was wrong from the beginning.
We weren't fighting for the world's freedom. We weren't fighting for anything. I learned a lot about the war. I learned a lot about my generation, of having your heart be wide enough to encompass the people that went.
I think I came away with it mostly with really good memories, and I don't wake up at nights worrying about it or thinking about it. But still, I feel honored to have the opportunity.
It was very fulfilling. Playing for these guys and seeing their eyes light up and seeing them forget about themselves for a while.
It was our singular great pride to have been the first band to bring real American rock and roll to the Vietnam era, and it to this day is a tremendous source of pride which we'll never forget as long as we live.
The dreams you had when you were young. true. Sneaking rhyme, but always true. So now you know just who I am. I'm here to wake you along myself. I hope you understand. It took a long time for you to realize what you've been missing. Your love's locked up inside, 'cause you've been taken for a ride. Because you never believed hard enough in the dreams that you had when you were young. It was those young years, those warm summer days that you remember. When you let me fade away, now you regret that I can't say that you never believed hard enough in the dreams that you had.